Akar means disaster, which would make sense, being the one who brought disaster on Israel, but yeah. A lot of these names were very literal, and possibly not even like the names that people were born with, such as in the case of Israel. He was born with the name Jacob, so it could be, especially when something notable happened involving a particular person, that they became known by a different name later. And that is just what they are then known by, because it basically becomes a shortcut to knowing, oh yeah, that person did this thing. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Okay, so we're in 1 Chronicles chapter 2 now. The last chapter was a bunch of genealogy, going from Adam to Noah, Noah to Abraham in a few steps, Abraham to Jacob / Israel, and getting a little more into that, and some of the connections there. And it seems like we're continuing the genealogy here. This kind of stuff is why a lot of people skip over parts like this in the Bible. But anyway, okay, let's hop in. 1 Chronicles chapter 2. Sons of Israel were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Judah had 3 sons from Bathshua, a Canaanite woman. Their names were Onan, and Shelah. But the Lord saw that the oldest son, was a wicked man, so he killed him. Later, Judah had twin sons from Tamar, his widowed daughter-in-law. Their names were Perez and Zerah. So Judah had 5 sons in all. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Zerah were Zimri, Ethan, Heman, Calcol, and Darda, 5 in all. The son of Carmi, a descendant of Zimri, was Achan, probably pronounced Achan, really, but anyway, who brought disaster on Israel by taking plunder that had been set apart for the Lord. And the son of Ethan was Azariah. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily trying my absolute best to say these names as I believe they would have been pronounced by, the Israelites, or whoever would have been saying them originally. But, this is a case where I think, as long as you get the general idea, it's close enough. Note there at Israel mentions that that's the name God gave to Jacob, so he was born with the name Jacob. But as I mentioned last chapter, wrestled with God, and then became known as Israel, which I think literally means something like to wrestle with God, or one who wrestles with God. So it mentions his sons, which of course are the namesakes of the tribes of Israel. Starting off with Judah, who is not the oldest, I think. Anyway, so it gets into some of Judah's line. Note there at Darda, as in many Hebrew, Greek, and Syriac version. Hebrew reads Dara. I guess some other Hebrew manuscripts read Dara instead of Darda. And this one, Hebrew says a car rather than a can. Compare Joshua 7:1. Akar means disaster, which would make sense, being the one who brought disaster on Israel, but yeah. A lot of these names were very literal, and possibly not even like the names that people were born with, such as in the case of Israel. He was born with the name Jacob. So it could be, especially when something notable happened involving a particular person, that they became known by a different name later. And that is just what they are then known by, because it basically becomes a shortcut to knowing, oh yeah, that person did this thing. Note there, the Hebrew term used here refers to complete consecration of things or people to the Lord, either by destroying them or by giving them as an offering. That describing the set apart for the Lord segment there. But Achan took a bunch of that. Okay, moving on. Oh, so now we're working our way to David here, starting with verse 9. Sons of Hezron were Jerahmeel, Ram, and Caleb. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon, a leader of Judah. Nahshon was the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse's first son was Eliab. His second was Abinadab. His third was Shimeah. His fourth was Nethanel. His fifth was Radai. His sixth was Ozem. And his seventh was David. Their sisters were named Zeruiah and Abigail. Zeruiah had 3 sons named Abishai, Joab, and Asahel. Abigail married a man named Jether, an Ishmaelite, and they had a son named Amasa. Okay, so David was the youngest of Jesse's 7 sons. But I guess we're interested in the line of David here because of, well, us Christians are interested in the line of David because that's also, like, you know, as you go on from David, that's really kind of the line that then leads to Mary, the mother of Jesus. But I guess we're not going to read too much into Jacob's other sons at the moment. But still, note there at Caleb, Hebrews says Kelubai. Sorry. The I's and the L's can be just a little bit difficult to differentiate here. But it says that's a variant spelling of Caleb. Almost makes me think could be almost a phonetic spelling, or I don't know. Anyway, note there it's Salmon, as in Greek version. Hebrew reads Salma. Still pretty similar. No other notes in that section. Also, the name Jether's kind of ringing a bell from when it was going through the genealogy descended from Ishmael in the previous chapter. And also, Amasa, wasn't that a guy who wound up being sort of like a commander for David or something to that effect? Maybe? That could be a reason for noting all that. Just saying. I don't recall with 100% certainty, though. So, I'm going to keep moving on to verse 18. Hezron's son Caleb had sons from his wife Azubah and from Jerioth. Her sons were named Jesher, Shobab, and Ardon. After Azubah died, Caleb married Ephrathah, and they had a son named Hur. Hur was the father of Uri. Uri was the father of Bezalel. When Hezron was 60 years old, he married Gilead's sister, the daughter of Machir. They had a son named Segub. Segub was the father of Jair, who ruled 23 towns in the land of Gilead. But Gesher and Aram captured the towns of Jair and also took Kenath and its 60 surrounding villages. All these were descendants of Machir, the father of Gilead. Soon after Hezron died in the town of Caleb Ephrathah, his wife Abijah gave birth to a son named Asher, father of Tekoa. Okay. That name right there sounds kind of familiar. Might have been mentioned as the mother of one of the kings. Perhaps specifically a king over the split kingdom of Israel. But that's just me trying to go off the top of my head and what I think I remember. I might be wrong on that. Okay. Nothing too much really stands out about a bunch of this genealogy as like, oh hey, yeah, here's a noteworthy connection or something significant that happened, or a person who was significant because they were connected with this thing. Some of these people might have been, and I just don't recall. But really, I'm taking a lot of this genealogy as a summary of, alright, here's what's happened so far. And maybe here's also some of the background for other people and, other things that could give context for what's going to happen when we then advance the chronology. But anyway, note there at Jerioth, where Caleb had a daughter named Jerioth from his wife, Azubah. Okay. Meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain. See, okay, that would make Jerioth not someone who was not a woman who gave birth to descendants of Caleb, but rather a daughter of his. Whereas the way it's worded outside the note there makes it sound like Jerioth was another woman through whom Caleb had children. And that also makes the her here confusing. Is that referring to Jerioth or Azubah? The note there, if that's how it's meant to be understood, would make that a little clearer. But now it does go back to mentioning Azubah again here. So I think it's safer to assume that these sons here, starting, like in this section, were sons of Azubah. But anyway, after she died, he married, Hebrew says Ephrath, not Ephrathah. Variant spelling, okay. Note down here in verse 23, or captured Havoth Jair rather than the towns of. Havoth could be a way of saying the towns of in Hebrew, for all I know. So I'm just going to say, okay, same thing. Father of Tekoa, note there says, or the founder of, rather than father of, but those were often one and the same. But you say father of Tekoa, that would be like, okay, he's the actual, like, ancestor, rather than founder could just be, alright, he started this. I don't even know if Tekoa was supposed to be more of like a kingdom, a place, a people group, or what, I don't know, but saying the founder of could just more so be like, alright, here's the guy who started it, and or is the namesake of it. Well, no, it wouldn't be the namesake of Tekoa. Anyway. Father or founder, either way. Had a major starting role in whatever Tekoa was. Alright. Moving along, verse 25. Sons of Jerahmeel, the oldest son of Hezron, were Ram, the firstborn, Bunah, Oren, Ozem, and Ahijah. Jerahmeel had a second wife named Atara. She was the mother of Onam. Sons of Ram, the oldest son of Jerahmeel, were Maaz, Jamin, and Eker. Sons of Onam were Shammai and Jada. Sons of Shammai were Nadab and Abishur. Sons of Abishur and his wife Abihail were Aban and Molid. Sons of Nadab were Seled and Aphaim. Seled died without children, but Aphaim had a son named Ishi. Son of Ishi was Sheshan. Sheshan had a descendant named Alai. Sons of Jada, Shammai's brother, were Jether and Jonathan. Jether died without children, but Jonathan had two sons named Peleth and Zaza. These were all descendants of Jerahmeel. Sheshan had no sons, though he did have daughters. He also had an Egyptian servant named Jarha. Sheshan gave one of his daughters to be the wife of Jarha, and they had a son named Attai. Attai was the father of Nathan, Nathan the father of Zabad, Zabad the father of Ephlal, Ephlal the father of Obed, Obed was the father of Jehu, Jehu was the father of Azariah, Azariah the father of Helez, Helez the father of Eliasah, Eliasah the father of Sismai, Sismai was the father of Shallum, Shallum was the father of Jechamiah, Jechamiah was the father of Elishama. Okay. And I'm kind of wondering, like, where are we going with this? Or was Hezron just a bigger deal than I thought in all this? Kind of like, okay, yeah, it mentioned all the descendants of Ishmael because he was a significant descent. I mean, he was one of the sons of Abraham, who was a big deal to the Jewish people. I'm not sure about Hezron's status like that, if he was on a particular level of noteworthiness. I don't even know if that's a real word, but that's how I'm gonna say it. So, and that's just, those are all just descendants of his one son. See, okay, so it mentioned Hezron here. Hezron was, I guess... Okay, Hezron was Judah's grandson. So, it covered the line of David, but now it's also covering other branches of Hezron's line. Okay, so I guess the connection to David is kind of important to note. And I do wonder if any of these people wound up being kings of Israel or Judah at different points. I mean, the names sound familiar, but, like, there's repetition of names throughout various parts of the Bible. Especially when you only go by one name and not, having first and last, or even middle, like most people have today. Anyway, okay. There's still quite a bit to go. I'm going to move along to verse 42. I almost said 24. The descendants of Caleb, the brother of Jerahmeel, included Mesha, the firstborn, who became the father of Ziph. Caleb's descendants also included the sons of Marishah, the father of Hebron. Okay, that's kind of a noteworthy thing, I guess. Although note there says, or who founded Hebron, meaning of the Hebrew is uncertain. Anyway, the sons of Hebron were Korah, Tapua, Rechem, and Shema. Shema was the father of Raham. Raham was the father of Jorkiam. Rechem was the father of Shammai. Son of Shammai was Maon. Maon was the father of Beth Zur. Caleb's concubine Ephah gave birth to Haran, Moza, and Gazez. Haran was the father of Gazez. Let's keep that pronunciation consistent at least. Sons of Jadai were Regem, Jotham, Geshen, Pelet, Ephah, and Sheaf. Another of Caleb's concubines, Maacah, gave birth to Sheber and Terhana. She also gave birth to Sheaf, father of Madmanah, and Shiva, the father of Machbenah and Gibeah. Caleb also had a daughter named Aksa. These were all the descendants of Caleb. Okay. Covered the note there at Hebron. And see, sometimes the phrase the father of is used not quite literally to mean like, the biological ancestor of, but like sometimes we'll refer to a person who kind of like kick-started a certain thing as the father of such and such. Like the father of modern medicine. Or, father of... insert similar thing here. So anyway. Okay, went through all of Caleb's descendants now. And now we're getting to Caleb's son. And I don't like when it breaks up a verse like this. Oh well. Continuing part way through verse 50, technically. The sons of Hur, the oldest son of Caleb's wife Ephrathah, were Shobal, the founder of Kiriath Jearim, Salma, the founder of Bethlehem, and Hareph, the founder of Beth Gader. Descendants of Shobal, the founder of Kiriath Jearim, were Haroeh, half the Menahathites, and the families of Kiriath Jearim, the Ithrites, Puthites, Shumathites, and Mishraites, from whom came the people of Zorah and Eshtaol. The descendants of Salma were the people of Bethlehem, the Netophathites, Atroth Beth Joab, the other half of the Menahathites, and the Zorites, and the families of scribes living at Jabez, the Tirathites, Shimeathites, and Sukathites. All these were Kenites who descended from Hamath, the father of the family of Rechab. Okay. Note there at the end, or the founder of Beth Rechab. Okay, see, now, Kiriath Jearim and Bethlehem, Bethlehem's a big deal. Being where Jesus is eventually born. But even Kiryat Jearim, I remember hearing a number of times throughout, I want to say, somewhere in the Judges to Kings range of things. But these were probably at least notable places. And it's mentioning the people who, I guess, founded those places. So yeah. Again, another chapter of genealogy. There's not really a whole lot of, like, theological detail that I can dig into with all that when that's the case. At least the verses go quicker. Otherwise, oh man, if some of these verses were the length of other ones that we were getting in, shoot, even just in 1st and 2nd Kings, some of those were some kind of long verses. But anyway, I digress. Okay, that's all we got for 1st Chronicles chapter 2. Okay, so now within the lengthy genealogy, we're getting into the section that's talking about Jacob / Israel's sons, which, you know, are the namesakes of the 12 tribes of Israel. Kind of a big deal. But also, like, I think that's pretty much what the focus is going to be for the next few chapters. Spoiler alert. So, yeah, like, it's really trying to get into as much of the history of God's people, it seems, as possible. At least with broad strokes, saying, like, okay, here's where we came from / who we came from, as a reminder of, you know, what got us to this point. Or something to that effect. Anyway, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff there. And leave your thoughts and questions down in the comments section below all that. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, until next time, stay cool, people.